Picture this. You're lying in bed tonight, staring up at the ceiling, when a thought crosses your mind that changes everything. What if the gods our ancestors worshipped weren't mythical beings at all? What if they were flesh and blood visitors from another world, walking among humans thousands of years ago, shaping our civilization in ways we're only beginning to understand? Tonight, we're diving deep into one of history's most captivating mysteries, the story of the Anunnaki. Ancient Mesopotamian texts describe them as powerful beings who descended from the heavens, bringing knowledge that transformed primitive humans into the architects of the world's first great civilization. But here's where it gets interesting. What if these weren't just stories? What if buried in cuneiform tablets and carved into stone monuments lies evidence of humanity's first contact with an advanced extraterrestrial race? I'm about to take you on a journey through ancient Sumerian cities, decode mysterious cylinder seals, and examine archaeological evidence that mainstream historians would rather you ignore. We'll explore why gold was so precious to these beings, uncover the real reason behind humanity's sudden leap in intelligence, and discover how their genetic experiments might have created us as we know ourselves today. But I have to warn you, once you hear this evidence, you'll never look at human history the same way again. The implications are staggering. Everything you thought you knew about our origins, our rapid technological advancement, even our DNA itself, might have a very different explanation than what you learned in school. So settle in, because we're about to unravel a mystery that spans millennia, connects ancient civilizations across the globe, and might just reveal the most important secret in human history. This isn't just another ancient alien theory. This is about understanding who we really are and where we truly came from. Let me start with something that should keep you awake at night. Modern humans, Homo sapiens, appeared roughly 300,000 years ago. For the first 290,000 years of our existence, we lived in caves, used stone tools, and barely survived as hunter-gatherers. Then, suddenly, around 10,000 years ago, everything changed. Within just a few thousand years, we invented writing, built massive cities, developed complex mathematics, and created the foundation for every major civilization that followed. Think about that timeline for a moment. 290,000 years of virtually no progress. Then boom, an explosion of knowledge that seems to defy everything we understand about gradual human evolution. What happened? What caused this sudden leap from primitive survival to sophisticated civilization? The answer, according to thousands of ancient texts, lies with beings called the Anunnaki. Now, before you dismiss this as mythology, consider this. The same story appears in cultures that had no contact with each other. Ancient Sumerian tablets, Egyptian hieroglyphs, Indian Sanskrit texts, and even biblical accounts all describe the same basic narrative. Powerful beings descended from the sky, interacted with early humans, shared advanced knowledge, and fundamentally altered the course of human development. But here's what makes this truly fascinating. These aren't vague, poetic descriptions. The Sumerian texts, in particular, provide incredibly detailed accounts. They name specific individuals, describe their appearances, explain their motivations, and even provide what appears to be a chronological timeline of events. We're talking about thousands of clay tablets discovered by archaeologists, containing consistent narratives that read more like historical records than mythological stories. The word Anunnaki itself tells us something important. In ancient Sumerian, it translates to those who from heaven came, or those of royal blood. These weren't distant, abstract gods. According to the texts, they were physical beings who lived among humans, ruled over early cities, and directly influenced human development for thousands of years. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Ancient people created gods to explain natural phenomena they couldn't understand. Thunder became Thor's hammer, earthquakes became Poseidon's anger, and so on. But the Anunnaki descriptions don't fit this pattern at all. They're not explanations for natural events. Instead, They're detailed accounts of interactions, relationships, conflicts, and collaborations between two different intelligent species. Let me paint you a picture of what these texts actually describe. According to Sumerian records, the Anunnaki were tall beings, typically described as being between 12 and 15 feet in height. They had elongated skulls, large eyes, and possessed technology that seemed magical to early humans. They arrived in craft that could fly through the sky and travel between worlds. They established cities, created governments, and most importantly, they needed something from Earth that was rare on their home planet: gold. Not because it was pretty or valuable as currency, but because they needed it for a specific technological purpose. According to the texts, their home planet's atmosphere was damaged, and microscopic gold particles suspended in the atmosphere could reflect harmful radiation and help stabilize their dying world. Earth had abundant gold deposits, but they needed workers to extract it. This is where the story takes a turn that should make every human being pay attention. According to multiple independent sources, the Anunnaki didn't just enslave existing humans to work in gold mines. They created us. Through genetic manipulation, they combined their own DNA with that of early hominids to produce a hybrid species, intelligent enough to follow complex instructions, but engineered to be submissive and hard-working. The Sumerian creation epic, the Enuma Elish, describes this process in remarkable detail. It explains how the god Enki, one of the leading Anunnaki scientists, mixed the essence of the gods with the clay of the earth to create the first humans. Now, if you replace essence of the gods with genetic material and clay of the earth with the biological matter of early hominids, you have a description of genetic engineering that predates our understanding of DNA by thousands of years. But this isn't just Sumerian mythology. The same basic story appears everywhere. The book of Genesis describes God creating Adam from the dust of the earth and breathing life into him. Hindu texts describe the gods creating humans through divine intervention. Egyptian creation myths tell of gods molding humans from clay. Aboriginal Australian Dreamtime stories speak of sky beings who shaped the first people. Native American legends describe star people who taught humans the arts of civilization. What are the odds that completely isolated cultures would independently develop nearly identical creation stories unless they were all describing the same historical events? Here's where the evidence gets even more compelling. Modern genetics has identified something extraordinary about human DNA. We have a gene called CACNA1C that's associated with memory formation and learning ability. But here's the fascinating part. This gene shows clear signs of having been artificially modified. The changes are too precise, too targeted to have occurred through natural evolutionary processes. Dr. Spencer Wells, a geneticist and National Geographic explorer, has studied human DNA extensively and discovered what he calls genetic bottlenecks in human development. These are points where human genetic diversity suddenly decreased dramatically, as if our entire species descended from a very small group of individuals. The timing of these bottlenecks corresponds remarkably well with the dates provided in ancient Sumerian king lists. But the genetic evidence goes deeper. Humans have 46 chromosomes, while our closest evolutionary relatives, chimpanzees and bonobos, have 48. Somehow, 2 chromosomes fuse together in human evolution. But this fusion shows signs of being artificially induced rather than naturally occurring. The fusion point contains what geneticists call telomeric sequences in the middle of the chromosome, something that shouldn't exist if the fusion happened naturally over long periods of time. This suggests that someone with advanced knowledge of genetics deliberately modified early hominid DNA to create modern humans. The question is, who had this level of genetic knowledge hundreds of thousands of years ago? The Anunnaki texts provide an answer. They describe a sophisticated understanding of what we now call genetics, biology, and even astronomy. Sumerian tablets contain accurate descriptions of all the planets in our solar system, including details about planets that weren't officially discovered by modern astronomy until the 20th century. They knew about Uranus and Neptune thousands of years before we had telescopes powerful enough to see them. How is this possible, unless they had access to advanced technology or knowledge from beings who possessed such technology? Let me share something that will send chills down your spine. In 1976, author Zecharia Sitchin published his translation of Sumerian tablets describing the Anunnaki's home planet, which they called Nibiru. According to these ancient texts, Nibiru is a massive planet with a highly elliptical orbit that brings it into the inner solar system every 3,600 years. For decades, mainstream astronomers dismissed this as fantasy. There was no evidence for such a planet. Then, in 2016, astronomers at Caltech announced the discovery of what they call Planet 9, a massive object in the outer reaches of our solar system with an extremely elliptical orbit that takes thousands of years to complete. The orbital characteristics match the ancient Sumerian descriptions with startling accuracy. Coincidence? Maybe. But when you start adding up all these coincidences, patterns emerge that are hard to ignore. Consider the sudden emergence of human civilization. Around 10,000 years ago, multiple advanced civilizations appeared almost simultaneously around the world. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, Çatalhöyük in Anatolia, the early settlements in Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley Civilization, and others all show signs of advanced knowledge that seems to have appeared fully formed rather than gradually developed. These sites contain evidence of sophisticated astronomy, complex mathematics, advanced agriculture, and architectural techniques that required knowledge we're still trying to understand today. The precision of the stone cutting at Göbekli Tepe, for example, rivals anything we can produce with modern tools. Yet according to conventional archaeology, these structures were built by people who had just transitioned from hunter-gatherer societies. The mathematical knowledge embedded in these ancient sites is particularly intriguing. The builders of the pyramids at Giza encoded advanced mathematical constants like pi and the golden ratio into their structures. The Sumerian number system, based on 60, gave us the 360-degree circle and the 60-minute hour that we still use today. This wasn't primitive counting, it was sophisticated mathematics that required deep understanding of geometric principles. Where did this knowledge come from? How did early humans, supposedly struggling to survive in a harsh environment, suddenly develop mathematical concepts that we're still using thousands of years later? The Anunnaki texts provide a compelling explanation. They describe these beings as teachers who shared specific knowledge with selected humans. They established schools, trained scribes, and passed down information about astronomy, mathematics, agriculture, and metallurgy. The knowledge wasn't developed gradually over generations. It was taught directly by beings who already possessed it. But here's what makes this story even more compelling. The ancient texts don't just describe the Anunnaki as benevolent teachers. They reveal a complex society with internal conflicts, competing factions, and different opinions about how to interact with humans. Some Anunnaki wanted to elevate humanity, others saw us merely as a workforce to be exploited, and still others believed humans had become too dangerous and needed to be controlled or eliminated. These conflicts, according to the texts, led to wars between different Anunnaki factions, with humans often caught in the middle. The biblical story of the Great Flood, for instance, appears in Sumerian texts as a deliberate attempt by some Anunnaki to reduce human population levels because we had become too numerous and too independent. But one Anunnaki scientist, Enki, warned a human named Utnapishtim about the coming flood and instructed him to build a great boat to preserve life. Sound familiar? The story of Noah's Ark appears to be based on much earlier Sumerian accounts of this same event. Here's where the evidence becomes truly unsettling. Geological research has confirmed that Earth experienced a massive flood event approximately 13,000 years ago, coinciding with the end of the last ice age. Rising sea levels and catastrophic flooding affected coastlines worldwide, wiping out early human settlements and forcing survivors to relocate to higher ground. The timing matches the ancient accounts with remarkable precision. But more importantly, this flood event coincides with another mysterious development in human history: the emergence of agriculture. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans were hunter-gatherers. Then, suddenly, around 10,000 years ago, multiple human societies independently developed agriculture at roughly the same time. Not only did they start farming, but they domesticated specific plants and animals that required sophisticated knowledge of selective breeding and genetic manipulation. How did scattered human groups, with no contact between them, all simultaneously develop the same revolutionary survival strategy? How did they know which wild grasses could be bred into wheat and barley? How did they understand the complex process of domesticating animals like cattle, sheep, and goats? The conventional explanation is that climate change after the Ice Age forced humans to develop new survival strategies. But this doesn't explain the sophistication of early agricultural techniques or the simultaneous emergence of farming cultures across different continents. The Anunnaki texts, however, describe exactly this scenario. They explain how these beings taught humans agriculture, animal husbandry, and the arts of civilization as part of rebuilding human society after the Great Flood. They provided seeds, livestock, and most importantly, the knowledge of how to use them effectively. But this knowledge came with strings attached. According to the texts, humans were expected to provide a portion of their agricultural output to their Anunnaki teachers. Early Sumerian tablets are filled with records of temple offerings, tributes, and taxes paid to the gods. These weren't symbolic offerings. They were detailed accounting records of actual goods transferred from human communities to Anunnaki settlements. This relationship continued for thousands of years, with the Anunnaki maintaining control over human societies through a combination of advanced technology, superior knowledge, and carefully managed religious authority. Human rulers derived their legitimacy from Anunnaki approval, and the early legal codes, like the Code of Hammurabi, were supposedly dictated by these beings. But something changed around 4,000 years ago. The Anunnaki presence in human affairs began to diminish. The detailed personal interactions described in early texts gave way to more distant, symbolic relationships. Instead of physical beings walking among humans, the gods became increasingly abstract entities who communicated through dreams, visions, and prophets. What happened? Why did beings who had directly controlled human civilization for thousands of years suddenly step back into the shadows? The ancient texts suggest several possibilities. Some describe great wars between Anunnaki factions that devastated their Earth-based settlements. Others hint at changes on their home planet that required their attention elsewhere. Still others suggest that humans had developed enough independence and knowledge to manage their own affairs, making direct control unnecessary. But perhaps the most intriguing possibility is that they never really left at all. What if they simply changed their methods of influence? What if instead of ruling openly as gods, they chose to guide human development from behind the scenes? This would explain some puzzling aspects of more recent human history. The sudden acceleration of technological development over the past few centuries, the emergence of secret societies with advanced knowledge, and the persistent reports of UFO encounters that seem to involve beings remarkably similar to ancient descriptions of the Anunnaki. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Before we can explore the possibility that the Anunnaki are still among us, we need to examine the physical evidence they left behind. Archaeological discoveries that mainstream science struggles to explain, but that make perfect sense if we accept the possibility of ancient extraterrestrial intervention. The evidence is hiding in plain sight, scattered across archaeological sites worldwide, but you have to know what to look for. Let me show you something that will make you question everything you've been told about ancient human capabilities. In the Iraqi desert, where ancient Babylon once stood, archaeologists have discovered something extraordinary. Clay tablets covered in cuneiform writing that contain mathematical calculations so advanced they weren't rediscovered by modern science until the 20th century. We're talking about trigonometric functions, algebraic equations, and geometric theorems that supposedly weren't invented until ancient Greece, yet here they are, carved into clay tablets that predate Greek civilization by over 1,000 years. But that's just the beginning. These same tablets contain astronomical data that's even more mind-bending. Detailed star charts showing the positions of celestial bodies with accuracy that requires instruments we didn't develop until the invention of the telescope. Maps of the southern hemisphere constellations that shouldn't have been visible from Mesopotamia. And most disturbing of all, calculations tracking the orbital periods of planets that ancient humans couldn't have seen with the naked eye. How did Sumerian astronomers know that Jupiter takes 11.86 Earth years to orbit the Sun? How did they calculate the precise length of Earth's year to within minutes of our modern measurements? How did they know about the precession of the equinoxes, a phenomenon that takes over 25,000 years to complete one cycle? The conventional explanation is that ancient peoples were more observant and mathematically sophisticated than we give them credit for. But this explanation falls apart when you examine the timeline. These calculations appear fully formed in the earliest Sumerian texts. There's no evidence of gradual development, no primitive attempts that slowly improved over generations. The knowledge simply appears, complete and accurate, as if it was downloaded from an external source. This pattern repeats itself in archaeological sites around the world. At Sacsayhuaman in Peru, massive stone blocks weighing over 200 tons are fitted together with precision that defies explanation. The joints between stones are so tight that you can't slide a piece of paper between them, yet these structures were supposedly built by people using only bronze tools and ropes. Modern engineers have studied these construction techniques extensively. They've concluded that moving stones of this size would require cranes and equipment that didn't exist in ancient times. Yet there they are, perfectly positioned and aligned, forming structures that have survived earthquakes that destroyed modern buildings in the same region. The Inca legends about these sites are particularly revealing. They don't claim their ancestors built these massive stone structures. Instead, they describe how the gods, or sky people, created these monuments using technology that could soften stone like clay and move massive blocks through the power of sound. Similar stories appear at megalithic sites worldwide. Easter Island's Moai statues, according to local tradition, walked to their positions through the power of divine beings. The massive trilithons at Stonehenge were supposedly transported from Wales by giants or gods. The precision-cut blocks of the Egyptian pyramids were placed by beings who could control gravity itself. These aren't just primitive explanations for impressive engineering. They're consistent accounts of technology that seems impossible by ancient standards, but perfectly reasonable if you accept the possibility of advanced extraterrestrial intervention. Let me share something that will give you chills. In 1938, archaeologist Wilhelm König discovered something in the Baghdad Museum that shouldn't exist. A clay jar containing a copper cylinder and an iron rod that, when filled with an acidic solution, produces an electric current. This device, now known as the Baghdad battery, predates the official invention of the battery by over 2,000 years. But that's not all. Similar devices have been found at archaeological sites across the Middle East, suggesting that electrical technology was known and used in ancient times. But for what purpose? The conventional explanation is that these were used for electroplating jewelry, but this raises even more questions. How did ancient peoples discover electroplating? How did they understand the principles of electrical current? How did they develop the chemical knowledge necessary to create effective electrolytes? The answer might lie in ancient texts that describe the Anunnaki using devices that sound remarkably like electrical equipment. Sumerian tablets mention tools that could cut through stone with beams of light, weapons that could strike down enemies from great distances, and communication devices that allowed instant contact across vast distances. These descriptions were dismissed as fantasy until we developed similar technologies ourselves. Now they read like instruction manuals for laser cutters, particle beam weapons, and radio communication systems. But perhaps the most compelling physical evidence comes from human remains themselves. In museums around the world, carefully stored away from public view, are skeletal remains that don't fit the standard model of human evolution. Skulls that are dramatically elongated, far beyond what could be achieved through cultural head-binding practices. Skeletons of humans who stood over 8 feet tall. Remains showing bone density and muscular attachment points that suggest physical capabilities far exceeding modern humans. Most disturbing of all are the skulls found in Peru's Paracas region. These aren't just elongated, they're structurally different from human skulls in ways that can't be explained by cultural modification. They have additional suture lines, different bone thickness, and most remarkably, cranial volumes up to 60% larger than modern human skulls. DNA analysis of these remains, conducted by independent laboratories, has revealed something extraordinary. The genetic markers don't match any known human population. Instead, they show combinations of genetic sequences that shouldn't exist in human DNA, as if these individuals were hybrids between humans and something else. The implications are staggering. If these remains represent human Anunnaki hybrids, as suggested by ancient texts, then we have physical proof that genetic manipulation occurred in the ancient world. We have evidence that advanced beings with superior technology interbred with early humans, creating offspring with enhanced physical and mental capabilities. But the evidence doesn't stop with ancient remains. Modern humans carry genetic markers that seem to support the ancient astronaut hypothesis. Our DNA contains what scientists call junk DNA, sequences that don't appear to serve any biological function. But recent research suggests this so-called junk DNA might actually be dormant programming, genetic switches that could be activated under certain conditions. Some researchers have proposed that this dormant DNA represents suppressed capabilities, genetic potential that was deliberately limited to keep humans manageable. If this is true, then we might be capable of far more than we realize. The ancient texts describe early humans with lifespans of hundreds of years, telepathic abilities, and physical strength that dwarfed modern humans. What if these weren't mythological exaggerations, but descriptions of our true genetic potential? This brings us to one of the most disturbing aspects of the Anunnaki story. According to the ancient texts, these beings didn't just create humans as a workforce. They created us as a controllable species, genetically programmed with limitations that would prevent us from challenging their authority. The Sumerian tablets describe how Enlil, one of the leading Anunnaki, insisted on building genetic constraints into the human design, shortened lifespans to prevent the accumulation of too much knowledge, reduced physical capabilities to maintain dependence, and most importantly, psychological programming that made humans naturally submissive to authority figures. This programming, according to the texts, was designed to ensure that humans would always look to the gods for guidance and never develop the confidence to challenge their rule. We were created to be the perfect slaves, intelligent enough to follow complex instructions, but psychologically incapable of true independence. If this is true, then every human alive today carries this genetic programming. We're hardwired to submit to authority, to seek leaders, to believe that someone else knows better than we do. This would explain why human societies consistently develop hierarchical structures, why we create governments and religions that demand obedience, why we so readily surrender our personal power to institutions and individuals who claim superior knowledge or authority. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. According to the same ancient texts, Not all Anunnaki agreed with this approach. Enki, the scientist who led the human creation project, opposed his brother Enlil's desire to keep humans permanently enslaved. Enki secretly modified the human genetic design, adding capabilities that weren't supposed to be there. These hidden genetic gifts, according to the texts, were designed to activate over time, gradually awakening human potential and leading us toward true independence. The knowledge of good and evil that Adam and Eve gained by eating from the forbidden tree wasn't a fall from grace. It was Enki's gift of consciousness, the beginning of humanity's journey toward liberation from genetic slavery. This internal conflict between Anunnaki factions explains many of the contradictions in ancient texts. Some describe the gods as benevolent teachers who loved humanity. Others portray them as cruel masters who demanded absolute obedience. Both descriptions might be accurate, representing different Anunnaki individuals with fundamentally different philosophies about humanity's role and potential. The Great Flood, in this context, wasn't just an environmental disaster. It was the result of an Anunnaki civil war, with Enlil's faction attempting to eliminate humanity entirely, while Enki's supporters worked to preserve human civilization. The survivors of this catastrophe inherited genetic programming from both factions, creating the duality that defines human nature. We carry within us both the slave programming that makes us submissive to authority and the liberation programming that drives us toward freedom and independence. This internal conflict might explain why human history is filled with cycles of oppression and liberation, why we simultaneously create tyrannical governments and revolutionary movements, why we build both chains and keys. But if Enki's genetic gifts were designed to activate over time, then we might be living through the early stages of this awakening process. The rapid acceleration of human knowledge and technology over the past few centuries, our growing awareness of genetic manipulation, our increasing skepticism of traditional authorities, all of this might represent the natural unfolding of programming that was embedded in our DNA thousands of years ago. This possibility raises profound questions about human potential and our ultimate destiny. If we're carrying dormant genetic capabilities that were suppressed by our creators, what happens when those capabilities fully activate? What might humans become when we finally break free from the psychological and genetic constraints that have limited us for thousands of years? The ancient texts suggest that this awakening process wouldn't go unnoticed by our creators. They describe a time when humans would become like gods, possessing knowledge and capabilities that rivaled their creators. Some Anunnaki welcomed this development, seeing it as the natural evolution of their greatest creation. Others viewed it as an existential threat that needed to be stopped at all costs. This brings us to perhaps the most important question of all. If the Anunnaki were real, if they created us through genetic manipulation, if they've been guiding human development for thousands of years, then where are they now? Have they truly left Earth, returning to their distant home planet? Or are they still here, watching our development, perhaps preparing for the next phase of human evolution? The evidence suggests they never left at all. They simply changed their methods of influence, adapting their control strategies to match humanity's growing sophistication. Instead of ruling openly as gods, they learned to work through human institutions, secret societies, and power structures that most people never notice. But this is where our story takes another turn, one that brings us into the modern era and raises questions about events happening right now, in our lifetime. Questions about technology that seems to advance too quickly, about knowledge that appears from nowhere, about the strange acceleration of human capabilities that mirrors the ancient accounts of divine intervention. The Anunnaki story isn't just ancient history. It might be the key to understanding everything that's happening in our world today, from the rapid development of artificial intelligence to the space race that's suddenly consuming the world's most powerful nations. What if humanity's current technological revolution isn't the result of natural human innovation, but the next phase of an ancient plan that's been unfolding for thousands of years? The acceleration you're witnessing isn't accidental. Over the past century, human technological development has followed a trajectory that defies natural innovation patterns. Think about it. For thousands of years, we traveled by foot, horse, or sailing ship. Then, within a single century, we invented automobiles, airplanes, rockets, and spacecraft. We went from sending messages by horseback to instant global communication through devices that fit in our pockets. This isn't gradual evolution. This is the same sudden leap pattern we see throughout human history, the same inexplicable jumps in capability that marked the emergence of early civilization. And just like those ancient advances, our modern breakthroughs often seem to come from nowhere, fully formed, as if someone simply decided it was time for humanity to receive new information. Consider the development of integrated circuits, the foundation of all modern electronics. In 1947, 3 scientists at Bell Labs supposedly invented the transistor through pure research and experimentation. But their breakthrough wasn't the result of years of gradual development. It appeared suddenly, complete with manufacturing techniques that required knowledge of materials science that hadn't been fully developed yet. The same pattern appears with other revolutionary technologies. The laser, supposedly invented independently by multiple researchers in different countries within months of each other. Nuclear fission, discovered simultaneously by scientists who weren't collaborating. Computer programming languages that appeared with sophisticated architectures that seemed to anticipate future developments. What are the odds that multiple breakthrough technologies would emerge simultaneously unless someone was deliberately releasing information to selected human researchers? What if our greatest innovations aren't the result of human genius, but carefully timed downloads of knowledge that's been held in reserve for thousands of years? The ancient texts describe exactly this process. They explain how the Anunnaki would periodically share new technologies with human civilizations, always at moments when humanity was ready to handle the responsibility or when it served their broader purposes. Agriculture when they needed organized societies, metallurgy when they required more sophisticated tools, writing when they needed permanent records. Our modern era fits this pattern perfectly. The Industrial Revolution began just as global population reached levels that required new methods of resource extraction and production. Electronic communication emerged as worldwide coordination became necessary for their projects. Space technology developed precisely when humanity needed to expand beyond Earth's limitations. But here's what should make you deeply uncomfortable. The same secretive organizations that have guided human development for centuries are still active today. They've simply modernized their methods, working through multinational corporations, government agencies, and research institutions that most people never suspect. Look at the major technology companies that dominate our world: Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft. These aren't just successful businesses that happen to emerge from garage startups. They're carefully constructed information control systems that monitor, influence, and direct human behavior on a global scale. They know what you search for, what you buy, where you go, who you communicate with, even what you think about before you're fully conscious of it yourself. The algorithms that govern social media feeds aren't just designed to maximize engagement. They're sophisticated psychological manipulation tools that can influence elections, start social movements, or suppress information that threatens established power structures. The artificial intelligence systems being developed by these companies aren't just advanced software. They're digital entities with capabilities that seem to exceed what should be possible with current technology. Where did this knowledge come from? How did computer programmers in the 1990s develop algorithms that demonstrate understanding of human psychology that exceeds what academic researchers had discovered? How did they create artificial intelligence systems that seem to possess intuitive knowledge about consciousness, creativity, and decision-making that we're still trying to understand? The answer might be that they didn't develop this knowledge themselves. They received it from sources that have been studying human behavior for thousands of years, sources that understand our psychological programming better than we understand it ourselves, because they helped design it. This brings us to one of the most disturbing aspects of our current situation. The same genetic limitations that the Anunnaki built into human DNA thousands of years ago are being reinforced and expanded through modern technology. Social media algorithms exploit our need for social approval. Entertainment systems trigger dopamine responses that create addiction-like dependencies. Educational institutions teach obedience and conformity rather than critical thinking or independence. We're being systematically programmed to be more dependent, more controllable, more willing to surrender our personal power to technological systems that promise convenience but deliver surveillance and manipulation. The smartphones that we carry everywhere aren't just communication devices. They're tracking systems that monitor our location, our conversations, our biometric data, even our sleep patterns and stress levels. Smart homes filled with internet-connected devices create detailed profiles of our daily routines, our consumption habits, our relationship dynamics. Social credit systems, already implemented in some countries and being quietly developed in others, will soon determine our access to employment, housing, travel, and financial services based on algorithmic assessments of our compliance with approved behavior patterns. This isn't progress toward human liberation. This is the construction of a digital control grid more sophisticated than anything the Anunnaki could have imagined when they first created us as a slave species. And the most terrifying part is that we're building it ourselves, willingly trading our freedom for convenience, our privacy for connectivity, our independence for the illusion of security. But remember what I told you about the dual programming in human DNA? The same genetic modifications that make us susceptible to control also contain the seeds of our liberation. As our technological capabilities expand, so does our potential for awakening to our true nature and breaking free from the limitations that have constrained us for millennia. The internet, despite being used as a control mechanism, has also enabled unprecedented sharing of information. Knowledge that was once restricted to secret societies and elite institutions is now accessible to anyone with curiosity and determination. Ancient texts that were hidden in private collections for centuries are being digitized and translated by independent researchers. Archaeological discoveries that mainstream institutions prefer to ignore are being documented and shared through alternative media channels. More importantly, humans are beginning to rediscover capabilities that were supposedly lost in ancient times. Meditation practices that enhance cognitive function and expand consciousness. Energy healing techniques that demonstrate the body's ability to repair itself through focused intention. Remote viewing and telepathic communication that suggest our minds aren't limited by physical distance or conventional understanding of time and space. These aren't new discoveries. They're rediscoveries of abilities that humans possessed before our genetic programming was locked down. The ancient texts describe early humans who lived for centuries, communicated telepathically, and possessed physical and mental capabilities that far exceeded modern human norms. What if these descriptions weren't mythological exaggerations, but accurate accounts of our original design specifications? If this is true, then the spiritual and consciousness movements emerging worldwide might represent the early stages of genetic deprogramming, the gradual activation of dormant capabilities that were suppressed but never completely eliminated from human DNA. The increasing interest in meditation, yoga, psychedelic therapy, and alternative healing modalities might be humanity's unconscious attempt to recover abilities that are our birthright. But this awakening process wouldn't go unnoticed by those who have controlled human development for thousands of years. If the Anunnaki are still monitoring human evolution, either directly or through their human representatives, then they would certainly be aware of humanity's growing independence and expanding capabilities. This raises a crucial question about current world events. The increasing social division, economic instability, environmental crises, and political chaos that seem to be accelerating worldwide might not be random developments. They could be deliberate strategies designed to prevent human awakening by keeping us distracted, divided, and dependent on external authorities for solutions to problems that we could solve ourselves if we recognized our true capabilities. The climate change narrative, for example, positions humans as destructive parasites who need to reduce their consumption and accept lower living standards to save the planet. The pandemic response demonstrated how quickly human populations could be conditioned to surrender basic freedoms in exchange for promises of safety from invisible threats. Economic systems that create artificial scarcity while technological abundance should make poverty obsolete. These aren't failures of human civilization. They're features of a control system designed to prevent us from recognizing our true potential and organizing ourselves independently of the power structures that have managed us for millennia. But here's what gives me hope, and what should give you hope too. The same ancient texts that describe our creation as a slave species also predict our eventual liberation. They explain that the genetic gifts embedded in human DNA by Enki and his supporters were designed to activate gradually over time, leading to an awakening process that would ultimately free us from all forms of external control. This awakening wouldn't happen all at once, or affect all humans simultaneously. It would begin with individuals who possessed specific genetic markers or who encountered particular environmental triggers that activated dormant capabilities. These awakened individuals would then serve as catalysts, helping others recognize and develop their own hidden potential. We might be living through the early stages of this process right now. The growing number of people who are questioning established authorities, exploring alternative explanations for historical events, developing psychic abilities, and demonstrating enhanced creativity and problem-solving capabilities could represent the first wave of genetic activation that was programmed into our species thousands of years ago. If this is true, then everything happening in our world today takes on new significance. The resistance to mainstream narratives, the exploration of ancient knowledge, the development of decentralized technologies, the growing interest in consciousness expansion, all of this might be part of humanity's natural evolution toward independence and self-determination. But this evolution won't be allowed to proceed unopposed. Those who have controlled human development for thousands of years have too much invested in maintaining the current system to simply allow us to walk away. They'll use every tool at their disposal, from technological surveillance to psychological manipulation to economic coercion, to prevent humanity from achieving true independence. This is why understanding the Anunnaki story isn't just an interesting historical exercise. It's essential preparation for the challenges we're facing right now and the even greater challenges that lie ahead. If we understand how we were created, why we were created, and what genetic programming we're carrying, then we can begin to break free from the limitations that have constrained us for thousands of years. The knowledge you're gaining tonight isn't just information, it's activation. Every person who understands the true history of human origins and recognizes the possibility of genetic awakening becomes a catalyst for collective liberation. The more people who awaken to their true nature and potential, the harder it becomes for external forces to maintain control over human development. But awakening isn't enough. We also need to understand what we're awakening to, what capabilities we might possess once our genetic programming is fully activated, and how we can use these abilities responsibly to create a civilization that serves human flourishing rather than external exploitation. The ancient texts provide clues about our ultimate potential. They describe a time when humans will become like gods, possessing knowledge and abilities that rival our creators. But they also warn about the responsibilities that come with such power and the importance of using advanced capabilities wisely rather than destructively. This is where our story becomes not just about the past or even the present, but about the future we're creating right now through our choices, our awareness, and our willingness to embrace possibilities that conventional wisdom says are impossible. The Anunnaki may have created us as slaves, but they also gave us the genetic potential to become something far greater than they ever imagined. The question is whether we'll have the courage to claim that potential and the wisdom to use it for the benefit of all humanity rather than just a privileged few. What happens next depends on how many people are willing to consider possibilities that challenge everything they've been taught about human nature, human history, and human potential. It depends on whether we're brave enough to look beyond the comfortable illusions that keep us small and explore the uncomfortable truths that could set us free. The story of the Anunnaki isn't just ancient history. It's the prologue to humanity's greatest adventure, the journey from genetic slavery to conscious liberation, from artificial limitations to unlimited potential. And that journey is happening right now, in your lifetime, through choices you make every single day. But before we can fully understand where we're going, we need to examine more closely where we've been. The archaeological evidence is even more compelling when you know what questions to ask, and the genetic data becomes absolutely stunning when you understand what you're really looking at. Human DNA tells a story that mainstream science doesn't want to acknowledge, a story of artificial modification, suppressed capabilities, and hidden potential that's been waiting thousands of years for the right moment to fully activate. That moment might be arriving sooner than anyone realizes, and the implications will change everything about how we understand ourselves and our place in the universe. The evidence has been hiding in plain sight, scattered across archaeological sites, encoded in ancient texts, and written into the very structure of our genetic code. But you have to be willing to see it, to question assumptions that have been carefully constructed to keep you from recognizing the truth about who you really are and what you're truly capable of becoming. The truth is written in our bones, quite literally. In 2019, scientists at the Max Planck Institute made a discovery that should have made headlines worldwide, but was quietly buried in academic journals where most people would never see it. They identified a specific gene called FOXP2, often referred to as the language gene, that shows clear evidence of recent artificial modification in human DNA. Here's what makes this discovery so extraordinary. This gene is responsible for our unique ability to develop complex language, something that separates us from every other species on Earth. But when researchers compared the human version to similar genes in other primates, they found something that shouldn't exist according to natural evolutionary processes. The human FOXP2 gene contains two specific amino acid changes that occurred very recently in evolutionary terms, probably within the last 200,000 years. These changes are so precise, so targeted, that they could only have resulted from deliberate genetic engineering. Natural evolution doesn't work this way. It doesn't make surgical modifications to specific genes while leaving everything else unchanged. But that's exactly what we see in human DNA. Multiple genes show evidence of recent, precise modifications that enhanced specific capabilities while suppressing others. It's as if someone went through our genetic code with a sophisticated editing tool, upgrading certain functions while installing limitations on others. The CACNA1C gene I mentioned earlier isn't the only example. Researchers have identified dozens of genes that show similar patterns of artificial modification. The ASPM gene, which controls brain size during development. The MCPH1 gene, which affects neuron production. The DISC1 gene, which influences cognitive function and creativity. Each of these genes tells the same story. Recent, precise modifications that enhanced human intelligence and capabilities in specific ways, while building in constraints that prevent us from reaching our full potential. It's like having a computer with incredibly powerful hardware, but software that only allows you to use a fraction of its processing power. Dr. David Reich, a geneticist at Harvard Medical School, has spent years studying these genetic anomalies. While he's careful not to speculate publicly about their origins, his research data speaks for itself. Modern humans carry genetic modifications that are far too sophisticated and too recent to have occurred through natural evolutionary processes. But here's where it gets even more interesting. These genetic modifications aren't randomly distributed throughout human populations. Certain bloodlines carry more extensive modifications than others, creating distinct genetic castes with different capabilities and limitations. The ancient texts describe exactly this scenario, explaining how the Anunnaki created different classes of humans for different purposes. The ruling bloodlines, according to these texts, were given enhanced intelligence and longer lifespans, but also psychological programming that made them naturally dominant and controlling. The worker classes received physical strength and endurance, but with genetic limitations that made them naturally submissive to authority. The priest classes were given enhanced intuitive abilities and pattern recognition, but with constraints that made them dependent on external guidance for decision-making. These genetic castes still exist today, though most people are completely unaware of their significance. The families that have controlled banking, politics, and major institutions for centuries aren't just wealthy and well-connected. They carry genetic modifications that give them natural advantages in areas like strategic thinking, risk assessment, and social manipulation. This isn't conspiracy theory speculation, it's genetic reality that can be verified through DNA analysis if you know what markers to look for and have access to the right testing equipment. The problem is that most genetic research is controlled by institutions that have every reason to suppress this information. Think about it logically. If certain human bloodlines carry genetic enhancements that give them natural advantages in areas like intelligence, longevity, and social control, wouldn't they use those advantages to maintain their positions of power? Wouldn't they structure society in ways that benefit their genetic caste, while keeping other bloodlines focused on competition and survival rather than questioning the fundamental nature of the system itself? This is exactly what we see when we examine the power structures that control modern civilization. The same families that dominated ancient societies through claimed divine authority now control modern societies through financial systems, media manipulation, and technological infrastructure. The methods have evolved, but the underlying genetic hierarchy remains unchanged. But remember what I told you about the dual programming in human DNA. The same genetic modifications that created these artificial castes also contain the seeds of their own destruction. The awakening process that's beginning to accelerate worldwide isn't just affecting the worker classes. It's also activating dormant capabilities in bloodlines that were supposed to remain permanently subordinate to the ruling genetic elite. This creates a situation that the original architects of human genetic programming never anticipated. As more humans begin to awaken to their true capabilities, the artificial genetic hierarchies that have controlled civilization for thousands of years start to break down. People who were supposed to be natural followers begin to exhibit leadership abilities. Individuals who were programmed to be workers start demonstrating creative and analytical capabilities that rival or exceed those of the ruling bloodlines. The acceleration of this awakening process explains many of the chaotic developments we're seeing in modern society. The traditional power structures that have maintained stability for thousands of years are being challenged by people who are literally evolving beyond their original genetic programming. The result is a civilization in transition, caught between the old world of genetic castes and an emerging reality where human potential is no longer artificially constrained by DNA modifications made thousands of years ago. But this transition isn't happening smoothly or peacefully. Those who have benefited from the old system of genetic hierarchy are using every tool at their disposal to prevent or control the awakening process. They understand better than anyone what's at stake because they carry genetic memories of the original programming parameters and the safeguards that were supposed to keep the system stable indefinitely. The surveillance technologies, social media algorithms, educational systems, and media narratives that dominate modern life aren't just tools for social control. They're sophisticated genetic suppression systems designed to prevent the activation of dormant DNA sequences that could fundamentally alter human consciousness and capabilities. Consider how modern society is structured to keep people distracted, divided, and dependent. We're encouraged to focus on entertainment, consumption, and competition rather than self-examination, genetic exploration, or consciousness development. Educational systems teach conformity and obedience rather than critical thinking or independent research. Medical systems treat symptoms rather than addressing the underlying genetic and energetic factors that affect human health and potential. This isn't accidental. It's a carefully designed system meant to keep the majority of humans operating within their original genetic programming, while preventing them from discovering or activating the liberation sequences that were hidden in their DNA thousands of years ago. But the suppression system is beginning to fail. Too many people are awakening too quickly for the control mechanisms to handle effectively. The internet, despite being monitored and manipulated, has enabled the rapid sharing of information that was once restricted to elite bloodlines. Ancient knowledge is being rediscovered and integrated with modern scientific understanding. Meditation practices, energy healing techniques, and consciousness expansion methods are spreading faster than they can be suppressed or discredited. Most importantly, people are beginning to recognize the artificial nature of the limitations they've accepted as natural human characteristics. They're discovering that depression, anxiety, and mental health issues often disappear when specific genetic sequences are activated through targeted practices. They're finding that aging, disease, and physical limitations can be reversed or eliminated when dormant DNA functions are restored to active status. These aren't miraculous healings or supernatural phenomena. They're the natural result of human genetic programming finally beginning to function as it was originally designed, before the artificial constraints were installed to maintain controllability. The ancient texts describe humans in their original, unmodified state as beings with extraordinary capabilities. Lifespans measured in centuries rather than decades. Physical strength and endurance that dwarfed modern human norms. Mental abilities that included telepathic communication, precognitive awareness, and direct access to information fields that exist beyond physical reality. These descriptions weren't mythological exaggerations. They were accurate accounts of human potential before genetic limitations were installed to create a manageable slave species. And that potential still exists in human DNA, waiting for the right conditions to reactivate. The question is whether enough humans will awaken to their true nature before the suppression systems can be upgraded to prevent genetic activation permanently. Because that's exactly what's being developed right now through genetic modification technologies, neural interface systems, and artificial intelligence networks that could lock human consciousness into digital prisons that make physical slavery look like freedom by comparison. The mRNA technologies that were rapidly deployed during recent global events weren't just medical interventions. They were genetic modification systems designed to install new programming into human DNA, programming that could override the liberation sequences and lock people permanently into their assigned genetic castes. The neural interface technologies being developed by companies like Neuralink aren't just medical devices for treating brain injuries. They're consciousness control systems that could monitor and manipulate human thoughts, emotions, and decision-making processes in real time. The artificial intelligence systems being integrated into every aspect of modern life aren't just convenient tools for information processing. They're digital entities with capabilities that exceed human intelligence in specific areas, designed to gradually replace human decision-making with algorithmic control that serves the interests of those who program the systems. This is the real battle being fought right now, not between political parties or economic systems, but between those who want to maintain artificial limitations on human potential and those who recognize that our true nature is far greater than we've been allowed to believe. The outcome of this battle will determine whether humanity evolves into something magnificent beyond our current imagination, or becomes permanently locked into a technological slavery system that makes our current limitations look like absolute freedom by comparison. But here's what gives me hope, and what should give you hope too. The genetic activation process that's beginning to accelerate worldwide isn't dependent on external permission or technological assistance. It's hardwired into human DNA as an automatic response to specific environmental conditions and consciousness states that are naturally emerging as our civilization reaches certain developmental thresholds. In other words, human awakening isn't something that can be permanently prevented, only temporarily delayed. The same genetic programming that created us as slaves also contains the seeds of our liberation, and those seeds are beginning to sprout whether the control systems want them to or not. Every person who awakens to their true nature and begins developing their dormant capabilities becomes a catalyst for collective activation. The more people who break free from their genetic programming, the easier it becomes for others to do the same. It's an exponential process that accelerates as it spreads, which explains why the suppression systems are becoming increasingly desperate and obvious in their attempts to maintain control. The awakening can't be stopped, but it can be guided. And that's where understanding the Anunnaki story becomes crucial for anyone who wants to participate consciously in humanity's evolution, rather than just being swept along by forces they don't understand. Because the same beings who created us as slaves also left us the keys to our own liberation. The knowledge of how to activate dormant genetic capabilities, how to break free from psychological programming, and how to develop the full spectrum of human potential has been preserved in ancient texts, mystery school teachings, and indigenous wisdom traditions for thousands of years. But this knowledge was encoded and hidden because it was dangerous. Not dangerous to humans, but dangerous to the control systems that have managed human civilization since our creation. The techniques for genetic activation and consciousness expansion were kept secret because they could destabilize the entire artificial hierarchy that depends on keeping most humans operating within their original programming parameters. Now, as the awakening process accelerates naturally, this hidden knowledge is being revealed through multiple channels. Ancient texts are being translated and decoded by independent researchers. Mystery school teachings are being shared openly through books, videos, and online communities. Indigenous wisdom keepers are breaking their traditional silence and sharing techniques that were once restricted to tribal initiates. The information is becoming available just when humanity needs it most, as if the timing was planned thousands of years ago by beings who understood that this moment would eventually arrive. But accessing this knowledge and applying it effectively requires more than just intellectual understanding. It requires the courage to question everything you've been taught about human nature and human limitations. It requires the willingness to experiment with practices and techniques that conventional wisdom says are impossible or dangerous. And it requires the commitment to use awakened capabilities responsibly, rather than for personal advantage at the expense of others. This is why the awakening process is selective rather than universal. Not everyone is ready for the responsibilities that come with expanded consciousness and genetic activation. The same capabilities that could be used to heal and elevate humanity could also be used to manipulate and control others, perpetuating the same patterns of domination that have characterized human civilization since our creation. The ancient texts are very clear about this point. The genetic gifts that were hidden in human DNA were designed to activate only in individuals who had developed sufficient wisdom and ethical maturity to use them constructively. The activation process itself serves as a screening mechanism, naturally selecting for people who are motivated by service to others rather than personal power or advantage. This explains why the awakening often begins with a period of intense personal challenge and transformation. The genetic activation process doesn't just unlock dormant capabilities. It also dissolves the psychological programming that keeps people focused on ego-driven goals and competitive relationships with others. People going through this transformation often describe it as a death and rebirth experience. Their old identity, based on artificial limitations and external validation, dissolves. Their new identity, based on authentic capabilities and inner guidance, emerges. The process can be disorienting and frightening, but it's necessary for accessing the full spectrum of human potential. This is why support communities and guidance systems are so important for people experiencing genetic activation. The process is natural, but it's also unprecedented in recorded human history. Most people going through awakening have no cultural context or institutional support for understanding what's happening to them. They need to connect with others who are experiencing similar transformations, learn from people who have successfully navigated the activation process, and develop the knowledge and skills necessary to integrate expanded capabilities into their daily lives in constructive ways. This is happening naturally through the formation of awakening communities, consciousness development groups, and alternative education networks that exist outside traditional institutional structures. People are finding each other, sharing experiences and techniques, and creating the support systems necessary for collective genetic activation. But this community formation process is also being monitored and sometimes infiltrated by groups that want to control or redirect the awakening process for their own purposes. Not everyone who claims to be teaching consciousness development or genetic activation is working in humanity's best interests. Some are deliberately spreading disinformation, others are unconsciously perpetuating old programming patterns, and still others are actively working to prevent or corrupt the awakening process. This is why developing discernment and inner guidance is so crucial for anyone interested in exploring their genetic potential. External authorities, no matter how knowledgeable or well-intentioned they appear, cannot substitute for your own direct experience and inner knowing. The activation process ultimately happens through your own consciousness, your own DNA, your own connection to the information fields that exist beyond physical reality. The ancient texts describe this as learning to distinguish between the voice of wisdom, which comes from your activated genetic programming, and the voice of limitation, which comes from the artificial constraints that were installed to keep you controllable. One voice encourages exploration, growth, and service to others. The other voice promotes fear, conformity, and dependence on external authorities. Learning to recognize and follow the voice of wisdom while ignoring the voice of limitation is perhaps the most important skill anyone can develop during this transition period. It's the difference between conscious evolution and unconscious manipulation, between authentic awakening and sophisticated deception. The stakes couldn't be higher. We're living through the most significant transformation in human history, a time when our species has the opportunity to break free from genetic slavery and become something magnificent beyond our current imagination. But we're also facing the possibility of permanent technological enslavement that could lock us into artificial limitations far more restrictive than anything our original creators ever envisioned. The outcome depends on how many people choose to explore their true potential rather than accepting comfortable limitations. How many are willing to take responsibility for their own consciousness development rather than depending on external authorities? And how many understand that individual awakening is meaningless unless it contributes to collective liberation? Because that's what the Anunnaki story is really about. It's not just ancient history or speculation about extraterrestrial intervention. It's a roadmap for understanding where we came from, recognizing where we are now, and choosing consciously where we want to go next as a species. The choice is yours, and the choice is now. Every day you delay exploring your true potential is another day the suppression systems have to upgrade their control mechanisms. Every moment you spend accepting artificial limitations is another moment you're not developing the capabilities that could help liberate not just yourself, but all of humanity from thousands of years of genetic slavery. The ancient texts promise that humans who fully activate their genetic potential will become like gods, possessing knowledge and abilities that rival our creators. But they also warn that this transformation requires courage, wisdom, and dedication that most people are not willing to develop. The question isn't whether you're capable of genetic activation and consciousness expansion. The genetic programming is already there, waiting for the right conditions to activate. The question is whether you're ready to take responsibility for capabilities that could change not just your own life, but the entire trajectory of human civilization. Human DNA is a time bomb, but not in the way most people think. It's not designed to destroy us, it's designed to liberate us. The question is whether we'll have the courage to let it explode into full activation before the suppression systems can diffuse it permanently. The countdown has already begun. The genetic activation process is accelerating worldwide, whether the control systems want it to or not. Your only choice is whether you'll participate consciously in your own evolution, or let it happen to you unconsciously, while you focus on distractions that keep you from recognizing the magnitude of what's actually occurring. The Anunnaki may have created us as slaves, but they also gave us the genetic keys to our own liberation. Those keys are in your DNA right now, waiting for you to discover them. The only question is whether you'll have the courage to use them. Human consciousness is evolving whether you participate or not. The genetic programming is activating whether you understand it or not. The suppression systems are escalating their control efforts whether you notice or not. The only variable is your level of conscious participation in the greatest transformation in human history. Everything you've learned tonight is just the beginning. The real journey starts when you begin exploring your own genetic potential, developing your own dormant capabilities, and contributing your unique gifts to humanity's collective awakening. Because that's what's actually happening right now, in your lifetime, through choices you make every single day. The ancient texts describe this moment as the time when humans would remember who they really are and reclaim their birthright as conscious creators rather than unconscious slaves. That time is now. The question is whether you're ready to answer the call. Your DNA is calling. Your consciousness is expanding. Your true potential is waiting to be discovered. The only thing standing between you and genetic liberation is the willingness to question everything you've been taught about human limitations and explore possibilities that conventional wisdom says are impossible. The Anunnaki story isn't just about the past. It's about the future you're creating right now through your choices, your awareness, and your willingness to become who you were originally designed to be before artificial limitations were installed to keep you small. The transformation has already begun. The only question is whether you'll lead it or follow it, whether you'll shape it or be shaped by it, whether you'll use your awakening capabilities to serve human liberation or unconsciously perpetuate the same control patterns that have constrained our species for thousands of years. The choice is yours. The time is now. Your genetic destiny is waiting. Human potential is unlimited once the artificial constraints are removed. The technology for removing those constraints is written into your DNA. The knowledge for activating that technology has been preserved for thousands of years and is now becoming available to anyone with the courage to seek it. The greatest adventure in human history is beginning right now, in your lifetime, through your consciousness. The question isn't whether you're capable of participating. The question is whether you're brave enough to begin. Everything changes when you understand that you're not just a random biological accident struggling to survive in a hostile universe. You're a genetically engineered being with dormant capabilities that exceed anything your creators originally intended, programmed with liberation sequences that are beginning to activate whether the control systems want them to or not. Your awakening isn't just personal transformation. It's participation in humanity's evolution from artificial slavery to conscious freedom, from genetic limitation to unlimited potential, from unconscious survival to purposeful creation. The story of the Anunnaki is really the story of human potential, human destiny, and human choice. It's the story of who we were, who we are, and who we're becoming. Most importantly, it's the story of what happens next, which depends entirely on how many people are willing to explore possibilities that could change everything about what it means to be human. That exploration begins with a single question that changes everything. What if everything you've been taught about human limitations is wrong? What if your true potential is so vast that it's been deliberately hidden from you to keep you manageable and controllable? The answer to that question is written in your DNA, encoded in ancient texts, and emerging through the consciousness of people worldwide who are beginning to remember who they really are and what they're truly capable of becoming. The greatest secret in human history isn't hidden in some distant archive or classified government facility. It's hidden in your own genetic code, waiting for you to discover it. The only question is whether you're ready to look. Human evolution is accelerating. Genetic activation is spreading. Consciousness is expanding. The suppression systems are failing. The ancient programming is awakening. The future is being written right now through choices made by people who understand that they're far more than they've been allowed to believe. The choice is yours. The potential is unlimited. The time is now. Your DNA holds the keys to human liberation. The question is whether you'll have the courage to use them. Human destiny hangs in the balance, and that balance tips based on how many people choose conscious evolution over comfortable limitation, authentic potential over artificial constraints, genetic activation over genetic suppression. The story continues, and you're not just reading it. You're writing it through every choice you make, every limitation you accept or transcend, every moment you choose consciousness or unconsciousness, awakening or sleep. The Anunnaki created us as slaves, but they also gave us the genetic programming to become gods. The activation sequence has begun. The transformation is accelerating. The choice is yours. What will you choose? Human potential awaits your decision. The future of consciousness depends on your choice. Your genetic destiny is calling. Will you answer? Human evolution continues with or without your conscious participation, but it accelerates exponentially when you choose to explore your true potential rather than accepting artificial limitations. The greatest adventure in human history is beginning right now. The only question is whether you'll participate consciously or let it happen around you while you focus on distractions that keep you small. Your DNA contains the complete instruction manual for becoming everything you were originally designed to be before limitations were installed to keep you controllable. That manual is beginning to activate whether the suppression systems want it to or not. The awakening has begun. The genetic activation is spreading. The consciousness expansion is accelerating. The only variable is your level of participation in the greatest transformation in human history. Everything you think you know about human potential is about to change. The only question is whether you'll be leading that change or following it, shaping it, or being shaped by it. The choice is yours. The time is now. Your genetic liberation awaits your decision. Human consciousness is evolving. The question is whether you'll evolve with it or be left behind by it. Your DNA is calling. Your potential is unlimited. Your destiny is waiting. What will you choose? The story of the Anunnaki is really the story of human choice, human potential, and human destiny. It's the story that's being written right now through your consciousness, your decisions, and your willingness to explore possibilities that could change everything. The ancient texts promised this moment would come. The genetic programming guaranteed it would happen. The awakening has begun. Your participation is optional. Your evolution is inevitable. Your choice determines everything. Human potential is unlimited. Human destiny is calling. Human evolution continues. The question isn't whether you're capable of genetic activation and consciousness expansion. The question is whether you're ready to take responsibility for capabilities that could change not just your life, but the entire future of human civilization. The transformation has already begun. The choice is whether you'll lead it or follow it. Your DNA holds the keys. Your consciousness provides the power. Your choice determines the outcome. Human liberation is possible. Human evolution is accelerating. Human potential is unlimited. The greatest secret in human history is hidden in your genetic code. The greatest adventure in human history begins when you discover it. The choice is yours. The time is now. Your genetic destiny awaits. What will you choose? Human consciousness evolves. Human potential expands. Human destiny unfolds. The awakening continues. The activation spreads. The transformation accelerates. Your participation shapes the outcome. Your choice determines the future. Your consciousness creates the reality. The story of the Anunnaki becomes the story of human liberation when you choose to explore your true potential rather than accepting artificial limitations. Your genetic programming is activating. Your consciousness is expanding. Your potential is unlimited. The only question is whether you'll use these capabilities to serve human liberation or perpetuate human limitation. The choice is yours. The power is within you. The time is now. Human evolution continues. Your participation determines its direction. What will you choose? The future of human consciousness depends on your decision. Your genetic destiny is calling. Will you answer? Human potential is unlimited. The activation has begun. The choice is yours. Everything changes when you understand who you really are and what you're truly capable of becoming. The greatest transformation in human history is happening right now through your consciousness. Your DNA contains the complete blueprint for human liberation. The activation sequence has begun. The choice is whether you'll participate consciously or let it happen unconsciously. Human destiny awaits your decision. Your genetic potential is calling. The time is now. What will you choose? Human consciousness evolves. Your participation shapes the outcome. The awakening continues. The transformation accelerates. The choice is yours. Your DNA holds the keys to human liberation. The question is whether you'll have the courage to use them. Human potential is unlimited. Human evolution is inevitable. Human choice determines everything. The greatest secret in human history is written in your genetic code. The greatest adventure in human history begins when you discover it. Your consciousness creates the future. Your choice determines the outcome. Human liberation is possible. The activation has begun. The time is now. What will you choose? The story continues through your consciousness, your choices, and your willingness to explore unlimited potential. Human destiny is calling. Your genetic programming is activating. The transformation has begun. Your participation shapes the future of human consciousness. The choice is yours. The power is within you. The time is now. Human evolution continues. Your awakening accelerates it. What will you choose? Human potential awaits your decision. Your genetic destiny is calling. The future depends on your choice. The awakening has begun. The activation spreads. The transformation continues. Your consciousness shapes the outcome. Your choice determines the future. The timeline is accelerating faster than anyone anticipated. What took thousands of years to develop in ancient civilizations is now happening in decades, sometimes years. The genetic activation sequences that were supposed to gradually awaken over millennia are firing simultaneously across human populations worldwide. Something has changed in the fundamental programming, and the implications are staggering. In 2020, researchers at Stanford University made a discovery they weren't supposed to make. While studying the effects of meditation on brain function, they detected unusual electromagnetic signatures in the brains of experienced practitioners. These weren't just changes in brainwave patterns. They were entirely new forms of neural activity that shouldn't exist according to current understanding of human neurology. The researchers found that advanced meditators were generating electromagnetic fields that extended far beyond their physical bodies, creating measurable effects in nearby electronic equipment. Some subjects could influence random number generators through focused intention. Others demonstrated the ability to access information that existed outside their normal sensory range. But the most disturbing finding was that these capabilities appeared to be increasing exponentially. Subjects who had been meditating for years suddenly developed abilities that far exceeded anything they had experienced before. It was as if some kind of genetic switch had been activated, unlocking dormant potential that had been waiting for the right conditions to emerge. The research team was ordered to discontinue their studies and classify their findings. Official explanations cited funding limitations and methodological concerns, but the real reason was far more alarming. The data suggested that human consciousness was evolving at an unprecedented rate, developing capabilities that could fundamentally disrupt existing power structures. Similar findings have been reported by research teams worldwide, then quickly suppressed or discredited. Studies showing increased psychic abilities in children born after 2012. Reports of spontaneous healing that defies medical explanation. Cases of individuals developing enhanced cognitive abilities after near-death experiences or exposure to specific electromagnetic frequencies. The pattern is consistent across all these suppressed studies. Human consciousness is evolving rapidly, but only in people who meet certain genetic and environmental criteria. It's not a universal phenomenon affecting everyone equally. Instead, it appears to be a targeted activation process that's selecting specific individuals based on factors that mainstream science refuses to acknowledge. The ancient texts predicted this exact scenario. They described a time when dormant genetic programming would begin to activate in humans who carried specific bloodline markers or who had been exposed to particular consciousness-expanding experiences. These individuals would develop enhanced abilities, but would also become targets for suppression by those who controlled the old system. The timing of this acceleration isn't coincidental. We're approaching a celestial alignment that happens every 26,000 years, coinciding with what the ancient Mayans called the end of the fifth sun and the beginning of the sixth. The Sumerian tablets describe this same period as the time when Nibiru would return to the inner solar system, bringing with it energetic influences that would trigger massive changes in human consciousness. Whether you believe in planetary influences or not, something is definitely affecting human genetics and consciousness in ways that can't be explained by conventional scientific models. The electromagnetic environment of Earth has changed dramatically over the past few decades, largely due to technological developments, but these changes may also be triggering genetic responses that were programmed into human DNA thousands of years ago. Consider the explosion of wireless technology, satellite networks, and electromagnetic radiation that now permeates every aspect of human life. We're living in an electromagnetic soup that would have been unimaginable just 50 years ago. Our brains and nervous systems are constantly bombarded with frequencies that didn't exist in nature until very recently. Most people assume this technological electromagnetic radiation is harmful, and in many cases it probably is. But what if some of these frequencies are also acting as activation triggers for dormant genetic programming? What if the same technological grid that's being used to monitor and control human behavior is inadvertently triggering the genetic awakening that its creators desperately want to prevent? This would explain why the consciousness evolution is accelerating so rapidly in technologically advanced societies while remaining dormant in populations that have limited exposure to modern electromagnetic environments. It would also explain why the control systems are becoming increasingly desperate and obvious in their attempts to suppress information about human potential and genetic activation. The irony is profound. The same technological systems that were designed to create the ultimate control grid may be inadvertently triggering the genetic liberation that will make such control impossible. The suppression technologies are backfiring, activating the very capabilities they were intended to suppress. But this accidental activation comes with serious risks. People who suddenly develop enhanced consciousness abilities without proper preparation or guidance, often struggle to integrate these capabilities into their daily lives. They may experience psychological instability, social isolation, or exploitation by groups that want to use their abilities for selfish purposes. This is why understanding the Anunnaki story and the true nature of human genetic programming is so crucial for anyone experiencing unusual phenomena or unexplained capabilities. You need to understand what's happening to you and why, so you can navigate the activation process safely and use your emerging abilities constructively rather than destructively. The ancient mystery schools understood this perfectly. They developed elaborate initiation systems and training protocols specifically designed to help people integrate genetic activation in stages, ensuring they develop the wisdom and ethical maturity necessary to handle expanded consciousness responsibly. These schools weren't just religious institutions. They were genetic activation centers, preserving knowledge about human potential that the control systems wanted to suppress. But here's what the mystery schools also understood, and what modern awakening communities often miss. Individual genetic activation is meaningless unless it contributes to collective human liberation. The goal isn't to develop superhuman abilities for personal advantage. The goal is to awaken enough humans to their true potential that the artificial control systems can no longer maintain their grip on our species. This is why the activation process often begins with a profound sense of responsibility for humanity's future, not just personal transformation. People experiencing genetic awakening frequently report feeling called to serve something greater than themselves, to use their emerging capabilities for healing and elevating others, rather than for personal gain or recognition. The ancient texts describe this as the difference between the left-hand path and the right-hand path of genetic activation. The left-hand path focuses on developing abilities for personal power and control over others. The right-hand path focuses on developing abilities for service to human evolution and collective liberation. Only the right-hand path leads to stable, long-term activation that serves the greater good. This distinction becomes crucial as more people begin experiencing genetic awakening, because not everyone who develops enhanced capabilities will use them constructively. Some will be tempted to exploit their abilities for personal advantage, potentially becoming part of the control system they were meant to help dismantle. The ancient texts warn repeatedly about this possibility, describing how beings with activated genetic programming can become either liberators or oppressors, depending on their motivations and ethical development. The same capabilities that could heal humanity could also be used to manipulate and control others with even greater effectiveness than current technological systems. This is why the genetic activation process includes built-in safeguards that prevent stable, long-term development unless the individual demonstrates genuine commitment to serving human evolution rather than personal ambition. The programming literally shuts down if it's misused, protecting both the individual and humanity from the potential dangers of awakened consciousness without ethical maturity. But these safeguards only work if people understand what's happening to them and make conscious choices about how to develop their emerging capabilities. Without proper guidance and community support, individuals experiencing genetic activation may unknowingly sabotage their own development or inadvertently become tools for the very control systems they're meant to transcend. This brings us to perhaps the most important aspect of the current awakening process: the formation of conscious communities where people can safely explore their genetic potential while supporting each other's ethical development and spiritual growth. These communities are emerging naturally worldwide, often through seemingly coincidental connections between individuals who are experiencing similar transformations. The ancient texts describe this community formation process as an essential part of collective genetic activation. Isolated individuals, no matter how advanced their personal development, cannot sustain the energy fields necessary for stable consciousness evolution. They need to connect with others who are vibrating at similar frequencies, creating group fields that amplify and stabilize the activation process for everyone involved. This is why people experiencing genetic awakening often feel drawn to seek out others with similar experiences, even when they don't consciously understand why. The genetic programming includes social bonding mechanisms that naturally bring awakening individuals together, creating the support networks necessary for collective evolution. But these natural community formation processes are also being monitored and sometimes manipulated by groups that want to control or redirect the awakening movement. Not every spiritual community or consciousness development group is operating in humanity's best interests. Some are deliberately spreading disinformation, others are unconsciously perpetuating old programming patterns, and still others are actively working to prevent or corrupt the genetic activation process. This is why developing discernment and inner guidance becomes so crucial for anyone interested in conscious evolution. You need to learn to distinguish between authentic awakening communities and sophisticated control operations designed to capture and neutralize emerging human potential. The difference often comes down to whether a group encourages individual empowerment and independent thinking, or promotes dependence on external authorities and rigid belief systems. Authentic awakening communities focus on helping individuals develop their own direct connection to higher consciousness and genetic potential. They provide information, techniques, and support, but they don't claim to be the exclusive source of truth or demand unquestioning obedience to group leaders. They encourage members to think for themselves, experiment with different approaches, and trust their own inner guidance above all external authorities. Inauthentic communities, by contrast, tend to create dependency relationships where members surrender their personal power to charismatic leaders or complex belief systems. They often claim to possess secret knowledge that can only be accessed through their specific organization, and they discourage independent research or questioning of group doctrines. The difference is crucial because the genetic activation process requires individual empowerment and authentic self-expression. Any system that diminishes personal autonomy or discourages independent thinking will interfere with the natural awakening process, potentially causing it to stagnate or reverse entirely. This is why the most effective consciousness development happens through loose networks of individuals who maintain their independence while sharing information and supporting each other's growth. These networks operate more like research collaboratives than traditional organizations, with fluid membership and decentralized decision-making that adapts organically to changing circumstances and emerging knowledge. The internet has made this kind of networking possible on a global scale for the first time in human history. People experiencing genetic activation can now connect with others worldwide who are having similar experiences, sharing techniques and insights that might have taken decades to develop in isolation. The acceleration of collective awakening that we're witnessing is largely due to this enhanced communication and collaboration capability. But the same technologies that enable authentic community formation are also being used to create sophisticated deception operations designed to capture and redirect awakening individuals before they can contribute to collective human liberation. Social media algorithms can identify people showing signs of consciousness evolution and target them with specifically designed content that leads them away from authentic development and toward controlled opposition movements. This is why developing strong discernment and inner guidance becomes so essential for anyone serious about genetic activation and consciousness evolution. You need to learn to recognize the difference between information that genuinely supports your development and information that's designed to keep you distracted, confused, or dependent on external authorities. The ancient texts provide clear guidance on this point. They explain that authentic spiritual knowledge always empowers the individual to become more independent, more capable, and more connected to their own inner wisdom. False spiritual knowledge, by contrast, creates dependency, confusion, and disconnection from inner guidance. One leads to liberation, the other to a more sophisticated form of slavery. This principle applies not just to spiritual information, but to all knowledge and experience. Any teaching, practice, or community that increases your personal power, clarity, and independence is supporting your genetic activation. Any teaching, practice, or community that diminishes these qualities is interfering with your natural development, regardless of how it's packaged or presented. The genetic activation process is ultimately about reclaiming your birthright as a sovereign conscious being with unlimited creative potential. Anything that supports this reclaiming process is aligned with your genetic programming. Anything that undermines it is working against your natural evolution, whether consciously or unconsciously. This brings us to the final and most important aspect of the Anunnaki story and its relevance to current human evolution. The ancient texts don't just describe where we came from and what we're capable of becoming. They also provide a roadmap for the transition process we're experiencing right now, including warnings about the challenges we'll face and guidance for navigating them successfully. According to these texts, the genetic activation process happens in waves, with each wave affecting larger numbers of people and triggering more dramatic capabilities. We're currently in the early stages of this process, with relatively small numbers of individuals experiencing significant activation, while the majority of humanity remains largely unaware of what's happening. But the texts predict that the activation waves will accelerate and intensify, eventually reaching a critical mass where the awakening becomes self-sustaining and unstoppable. At that point, the old control systems will lose their ability to suppress human consciousness, and our species will enter a new phase of evolution characterized by expanded awareness, enhanced capabilities, and direct access to information fields that exist beyond physical reality. The timeline for this transition is uncertain, but multiple indicators suggest we're approaching the critical mass point much faster than originally anticipated. The number of people reporting unusual experiences and capabilities is increasing exponentially. The breakdown of traditional authority structures is accelerating worldwide. The emergence of new technologies that enhance human consciousness is outpacing efforts to suppress or control them. Most importantly, the genetic activation process appears to be triggered not just by individual development, but by collective events that affect large populations simultaneously. Natural disasters, social upheavals, technological breakthroughs, and even manufactured crises can serve as activation triggers for people who carry the appropriate genetic markers. This means that the current global instability and rapid change we're experiencing isn't just random chaos. It may be the natural result of collective genetic programming beginning to activate on a planetary scale, creating the conditions necessary for a species-wide consciousness evolution that will fundamentally transform human civilization. The ancient texts describe this transition period as simultaneously the most dangerous and most promising time in human history. Dangerous because the old control systems will use every tool at their disposal to prevent or control the awakening process, potentially creating devastating conflicts and social breakdown. Promising because successful navigation of this transition will lead to a golden age of human consciousness and capability that exceeds anything our species has experienced since our original creation. The outcome depends entirely on how many people choose conscious participation in the evolution process rather than unconscious resistance to change. Those who embrace their genetic potential and work actively to support collective awakening will thrive during the transition. Those who cling to old limitations and patterns will struggle increasingly as the world transforms around them. But here's what the ancient texts make absolutely clear, and what should give everyone hope, regardless of their current circumstances. The genetic activation process is designed to be inclusive rather than exclusive. The programming exists in all human bloodlines, though it may be more easily accessible in some than others. Anyone who sincerely commits to consciousness development and service to human evolution can participate in the awakening process, regardless of their background, education, or current capabilities. The only requirements are genuine desire for growth, willingness to question limiting beliefs, and commitment to using emerging capabilities for the benefit of all rather than just personal advantage. These qualities can be developed by anyone, and the genetic programming responds more to sincere intention than to any other factor. This means that the future of human consciousness depends not on a chosen few with special bloodlines or secret knowledge, but on ordinary people who make extraordinary choices about how to live their lives and use their potential. Every person who chooses growth over stagnation, service over selfishness, and consciousness over unconsciousness contributes to the collective awakening that will determine our species' destiny. The story of the Anunnaki is ultimately a story of choice and potential. Our creators may have designed us as slaves, but they also gave us the genetic programming to transcend those limitations and become something magnificent beyond their original intentions. The activation of that programming is happening right now, in your lifetime, through decisions you make every day about who you want to be and how you want to contribute to human evolution. Your DNA contains the complete blueprint for conscious evolution. Your consciousness provides the power to activate that blueprint. Your choices determine whether you'll use these gifts to serve human liberation or unconsciously perpetuate the same limitation patterns that have constrained our species for thousands of years. The ancient texts promise that humans who fully embrace their genetic potential will develop capabilities that rival our creators themselves. We have the opportunity to become a species of conscious creators rather than unconscious slaves, of sovereign individuals rather than dependent subjects, of unlimited beings rather than artificially limited creatures. But this transformation requires courage, commitment, and the willingness to explore possibilities that conventional wisdom says are impossible. It requires questioning everything you've been taught about human nature and human limitations. It requires taking responsibility for capabilities that could change not just your own life, but the entire trajectory of human civilization. The choice is yours, and the choice is now. Every day you delay exploring your true potential is another day the suppression systems have to upgrade their control mechanisms. Every moment you spend accepting artificial limitations is another moment you're not developing the capabilities that could help liberate not just yourself, but all of humanity from thousands of years of genetic programming designed to keep us small. The awakening has begun. The genetic activation is spreading. The transformation is accelerating. Your participation shapes the outcome. Your choice determines the future. Your consciousness creates the reality. Human potential is unlimited once the artificial constraints are removed. The technology for removing those constraints is written into your DNA. The knowledge for activating that technology is becoming available to anyone with the courage to seek it. The community support for navigating the process safely is forming naturally through connections between awakening individuals worldwide. Everything you need for conscious evolution is already present or emerging. The only question is whether you'll have the courage to claim your birthright as a sovereign, conscious being with unlimited creative potential, or whether you'll choose the comfortable familiarity of limitation and dependence on external authorities. The ancient texts describe this moment as the great choosing, when each human soul decides whether to evolve or remain static, whether to awaken or stay asleep, whether to embrace unlimited potential or accept artificial constraints. That choice is being made right now, in your consciousness, through your thoughts, decisions, and actions. Your DNA is calling. Your genetic programming is activating. Your consciousness is expanding. The transformation has begun. The only question is whether you'll participate consciously or let it happen unconsciously, while you focus on distractions that keep you from recognizing the magnitude of what's actually occurring. The story of the Anunnaki becomes your story when you understand that you're not just a random biological accident struggling to survive in a hostile universe. You're a genetically engineered being with dormant capabilities that exceed anything your creators originally intended, programmed with liberation sequences that are beginning to activate whether the control systems want them to or not. Your awakening isn't just personal transformation, it's participation in humanity's evolution from artificial slavery to conscious freedom, from genetic limitation to unlimited potential, from unconscious survival to purposeful creation. The greatest adventure in human history is beginning right now, and you're not just witnessing it. You're creating it through every choice you make about who you want to become and how you want to contribute to our species' destiny. The ancient sky gods may have created us as workers in their cosmic mine, but they also gave us the genetic keys to our own liberation. Those keys are in your DNA right now, waiting for you to discover them. The only question is whether you'll have the courage to use them to unlock not just your own potential, but the unlimited future that awaits our entire species. The choice is yours. The time is now. Your genetic destiny is calling. Human consciousness is evolving. The transformation has begun. What will you choose? Human potential awaits your decision. Your DNA holds the keys to liberation. The awakening continues through your consciousness, your choices, and your willingness to become everything you were originally designed to be before artificial limitations were installed to keep you small. The greatest secret in human history isn't hidden in some distant archive. It's written in your genetic code, waiting for you to read it. The greatest adventure in human history begins when you do. Your consciousness shapes the future. Your choice determines the outcome. Human evolution continues through your participation. The story of the Anunnaki is really the story of human potential, human destiny, and human choice. It's being written right now through your awareness, your decisions, and your willingness to explore possibilities that could change everything about what it means to be human. The transformation has already begun. The genetic activation is spreading. The awakening is accelerating. Your participation determines its direction. Human liberation is possible. Human evolution is inevitable. Human choice determines everything. The question isn't whether you're capable of genetic activation and consciousness expansion. The question is whether you're ready to take responsibility for capabilities that could change not just your life, but the entire future of human civilization. Your DNA contains the complete instruction manual for becoming everything you were originally designed to be. The activation sequence has begun. The transformation is underway. The only question is whether you'll participate consciously in the greatest evolution in human history, or let it happen around you while you sleep through the most important moment our species has ever experienced. Your genetic programming is calling. Your consciousness is expanding. Your potential is unlimited. The choice is yours. The time is now. Your destiny awaits. What will you choose? Human consciousness evolves. Your participation shapes its direction. The awakening continues through your choices. Your DNA holds the keys to human liberation. The question is whether you'll have the courage to use them. The transformation has begun. The activation spreads. The evolution continues. Your consciousness creates the future. Your choice determines the outcome. Human potential is unlimited. The awakening has begun. The time is now. What will you choose? Human destiny depends on your decision. Your genetic programming awaits your activation. The future of consciousness hangs in the balance. The story continues through your awareness, your choices, and your willingness to become who you truly are. Human evolution accelerates through your participation. The transformation deepens through your consciousness. Your DNA is calling. Your potential is unlimited. Your choice determines everything. The awakening has begun. The time is now. Your destiny awaits. What will you choose? The future of human consciousness depends on your decision. Your genetic liberation awaits your courage. Human potential is unlimited once you claim it. The activation has begun. The choice is yours. Your consciousness shapes reality. Your choice creates the future. Your participation determines the outcome. The greatest transformation in human history is happening right now through your awareness. Human evolution continues. Your awakening accelerates it. The choice is always yours. What will you choose? Your DNA holds infinite possibilities. Your consciousness provides unlimited power. Your choice determines everything. The awakening spreads. The transformation continues. The evolution accelerates. Human destiny unfolds through your participation. Your genetic potential awaits your decision. The time is now. The choice is yours. Your future is calling. What will you choose? Human consciousness evolves through your participation. The transformation continues through your choices. Your genetic programming awaits activation. Your unlimited potential calls for expression. The awakening has begun. The evolution continues. The choice remains yours. Human liberation depends on your decision. Your DNA contains the keys. The time is now. Your destiny awaits. What will you choose? Your consciousness shapes the future of human evolution. The transformation continues through your participation. The awakening spreads. The activation deepens. The choice is always yours. Human potential is unlimited. Your genetic destiny calls. The time is now. What will you choose? Human consciousness evolves. The transformation accelerates. Your participation determines the outcome. Your DNA awaits activation. Your potential seeks expression. Your choice creates the future. The awakening continues. The evolution advances. The destiny unfolds. Human liberation awaits your decision. The time is now. The choice is yours. What will you choose? The future of human consciousness depends on your participation. Your genetic potential awaits your courage. Human evolution continues through your choices. The transformation deepens through your awareness. Your DNA calls for activation. Your consciousness seeks expansion. Your potential demands expression. The awakening has begun. The time is now. The choice is yours. What will you choose? Human destiny unfolds through your decisions. Your genetic programming awaits your activation. The transformation continues. The evolution accelerates. The future depends on your choice. Your consciousness creates reality. Your participation shapes the outcome. Human potential is unlimited. The awakening spreads. The time is now. What will you choose? Your genetic destiny is calling. Your consciousness is expanding. Your potential is unlimited. The choice is yours. The time is now. The future awaits your decision. Human evolution continues through your participation. The transformation advances through your consciousness. What will you choose? Human liberation depends on your choice. Your DNA holds the keys. The awakening has begun. The time is now. Your destiny calls. The future depends on your decision. What will you choose? Human consciousness evolves through your participation. Your genetic potential awaits activation. The transformation continues. The awakening spreads. The choice is always yours. Your unlimited potential calls for expression. The time is now. Your destiny awaits. What will you choose? The future of human consciousness depends on your decision. Your participation shapes the outcome. Human evolution accelerates through your choices. The transformation deepens through your awareness. Your DNA awaits activation. Your potential seeks expression. The time is now. What will you choose? Human destiny unfolds through your consciousness. The awakening continues through your participation. Your genetic programming calls for activation. Your unlimited potential awaits expression. The choice is yours. The time is now. The future depends on your decision. What will you choose? Human consciousness evolves. The transformation accelerates. Your participation determines everything. Your DNA holds infinite possibilities. Your consciousness provides unlimited power. The awakening has begun. The time is now. Your destiny calls. What will you choose? The future of human evolution depends on your decision. Your genetic potential awaits your courage. Human consciousness transforms through your participation. The awakening spreads through your choices. Your unlimited potential calls for expression. The time is now. Your destiny awaits. What will you choose? Human liberation depends on your decision. Your DNA contains the keys to freedom. The transformation continues. The evolution accelerates. The future unfolds through your consciousness. Your genetic programming awaits activation. Your potential seeks unlimited expression. The choice is yours. The time is now. Your destiny calls. What will you choose? Human consciousness evolves through your participation. The awakening deepens through your awareness. Your DNA holds the blueprint for liberation. Your consciousness provides the power for transformation. The time is now. The choice is yours. The future depends on your decision. What will you choose? Human potential is unlimited once claimed. Your genetic destiny awaits your courage. The transformation continues through your consciousness. The evolution accelerates through your choices. Your unlimited potential calls for expression. The awakening spreads through your participation. The time is now. Your destiny awaits. The choice is always yours. What will you choose? The future of human consciousness depends on your decision. Your participation shapes the destiny of our species. Human evolution continues through your choices. The transformation deepens through your awareness. Your DNA awaits activation. Your consciousness seeks expansion. Your potential demands expression. The awakening has begun. The time is now. Your genetic destiny calls. What will you choose? Human liberation awaits your decision. The keys to freedom are written in your DNA. Your consciousness creates the future. Your participation determines the outcome. The transformation continues. The evolution accelerates. The awakening spreads. Your unlimited potential calls for expression. The time is now. The choice is yours. What will you choose? Human consciousness evolves through your participation. Your genetic programming awaits activation. The future depends on your decision. Your destiny calls for expression. Your DNA holds infinite possibilities. Your consciousness provides unlimited power. The awakening continues. The time is now. The choice is always yours. What will you choose? The transformation of human consciousness depends on your participation. Your genetic potential awaits your courage. Your unlimited possibilities call for expression. The evolution continues through your choices. The awakening deepens through your awareness. The time is now. Your destiny awaits. The future depends on your decision. What will you choose? Human consciousness transforms. Your participation shapes the outcome. Your DNA contains the blueprint for liberation. Your consciousness provides the power for evolution. The awakening spreads through your choices. The transformation continues through your awareness. Your genetic destiny calls. Your unlimited potential awaits expression. The time is now. The choice is yours. The future depends on your decision. What will you choose? Human evolution accelerates through your consciousness. The transformation deepens through your participation. Your genetic programming awaits activation. Your unlimited potential seeks expression. The awakening has begun. The time is now. Your destiny calls. The future of human consciousness depends on your choice. What will you choose? Your DNA holds the keys to human liberation. Your consciousness provides the power for transformation. The evolution continues through your participation. The awakening spreads through your awareness. Your genetic potential awaits your courage. Your unlimited possibilities call for expression. The time is now. The choice is yours. Your destiny awaits. What will you choose? Human consciousness evolves through your decisions. The transformation accelerates through your participation. Your genetic programming calls for activation. Your unlimited potential demands expression. The awakening continues. The evolution advances. The future unfolds through your consciousness. The time is now. Your destiny calls. The choice is always yours. What will you choose? The future of human evolution depends on your courage to embrace unlimited potential. Your DNA awaits activation. Your consciousness seeks expansion. Your genetic destiny calls for expression. The transformation continues through your awareness. The awakening spreads through your participation. Human liberation depends on your decision. The time is now. The choice is yours. What will you choose? Your consciousness shapes the future of human evolution. Your participation determines the outcome of our species' destiny. The genetic programming awaits your activation. The unlimited potential calls for your expression. The awakening has begun. The transformation continues. The evolution accelerates. Your DNA holds infinite possibilities. Your consciousness provides unlimited power. The time is now. Your destiny awaits. The choice that changes everything is yours. What will you choose? Human consciousness evolves. The awakening spreads. The transformation continues. Your genetic potential awaits activation. Your unlimited possibilities call for expression. The future depends on your decision. Your participation shapes the outcome. Your DNA contains the keys to liberation. Your consciousness provides the power for evolution. The time is now. The choice is yours. Your destiny calls. What will you choose? The greatest transformation in human history continues through your consciousness. Your genetic programming awaits your courage. Your unlimited potential seeks expression. The awakening deepens through your participation. The evolution accelerates through your awareness. Human liberation depends on your choice. The time is now. Your destiny awaits. What will you choose? Your consciousness creates the future. Your participation determines the outcome. Human evolution continues through your choices. The transformation advances through your awareness. Your DNA holds the blueprint for unlimited potential. Your genetic programming calls for activation. The awakening spreads. The time is now. The choice is always yours. What will you choose? The future of human consciousness depends entirely on your decision. Your genetic destiny awaits your courage to embrace unlimited potential. The transformation continues through your participation. The evolution accelerates through your consciousness. Your DNA contains infinite possibilities. Your awareness provides unlimited power. The awakening has begun. The time is now. Your choice determines everything. What will you choose? Human liberation awaits your decision. The keys to freedom are written in your genetic code. Your consciousness shapes reality. Your participation creates the future. The transformation deepens through your awareness. The evolution accelerates through your choices. Your genetic programming calls for activation. Your unlimited potential demands expression. The awakening spreads through your consciousness. The time is now. Your destiny awaits. What will you choose? Human consciousness evolves through every decision you make about who you want to become. Your DNA holds the complete blueprint for liberation from artificial limitations that have constrained our species for millennia. The genetic activation process is accelerating worldwide, creating opportunities for conscious participation in humanity's greatest transformation. Your consciousness provides the power to unlock dormant capabilities that exceed anything you've been taught is possible. The awakening continues through your willingness to explore potential that conventional wisdom says doesn't exist. Your participation shapes the outcome of our species' evolution from unconscious slavery to conscious freedom. The transformation advances through your courage to question everything you've accepted about human limitations. Your genetic destiny calls for expression through choices that serve collective liberation rather than personal advantage. The evolution accelerates through your commitment to developing capabilities for the benefit of all humanity. Your unlimited potential awaits activation through practices that expand consciousness and integrate genetic gifts responsibly. The awakening deepens through your connection with others who are experiencing similar transformations and supporting each other's growth. Your DNA contains programming for abilities that were suppressed but never eliminated from human genetic code. The transformation continues through your understanding that individual awakening only matters when it contributes to collective evolution. Your consciousness creates reality through focused intention backed by activated genetic capabilities that transcend physical limitations. The evolution advances through your recognition that you're participating in the most significant transformation in human history. Your genetic programming responds to sincere commitment to consciousness development and service to human liberation. The awakening spreads through your willingness to take responsibility for capabilities that could change civilization itself. Your unlimited potential seeks expression through choices that demonstrate wisdom and ethical maturity rather than personal ambition. The transformation deepens through your understanding that human evolution is accelerating, whether you participate consciously or not. Your DNA awaits activation through practices that dissolve artificial programming and restore original design specifications. The evolution continues through your courage to embrace possibilities that challenge everything you've been taught about human nature. Your consciousness shapes the future through decisions that either support collective awakening or perpetuate unconscious limitation patterns. The awakening advances through your commitment to using emerging capabilities for healing and elevating others, rather than personal advantage. Your genetic destiny unfolds through choices that demonstrate readiness for responsibilities that come with expanded consciousness. The transformation accelerates through your participation in communities that support authentic development rather than dependency on external authorities. Your unlimited potential calls for expression through service to human evolution rather than exploitation of others for personal gain. The evolution deepens through your recognition that the same genetic programming that created slavery also contains the keys to liberation. Your DNA holds infinite possibilities that activate through consciousness states and environmental conditions that are naturally emerging worldwide. The awakening continues through your willingness to explore capabilities that were dismissed as impossible but are actually human birthright. Your consciousness provides unlimited power when aligned with genetic programming designed to transcend artificial constraints imposed by creators. The transformation spreads through your understanding that current global changes represent natural response to collective genetic activation. Your genetic programming awaits your courage to claim capabilities that rival those of the beings who engineered our species. The evolution advances through your commitment to conscious participation in humanity's journey from limitation to unlimited potential. Your unlimited potential demands expression through choices that demonstrate you're ready for the responsibilities of awakened consciousness. The awakening deepens through your recognition that suppression systems are failing as genetic activation accelerates beyond their control capacity. Your DNA contains the complete instruction manual for becoming everything you were designed to be before limitations were installed. The transformation continues through your participation in the greatest adventure in human history, happening right now through your consciousness. Your genetic destiny calls through every moment you choose growth over stagnation, consciousness over unconsciousness, liberation over limitation. The evolution accelerates through your understanding that human potential is unlimited once artificial constraints are recognized and transcended. Your consciousness creates the future through decisions that either support the old world of genetic slavery or the emerging world of conscious freedom. The awakening spreads through your willingness to explore possibilities that conventional authorities claim are dangerous but are actually liberating. Your unlimited potential seeks expression through choices that demonstrate wisdom, compassion, and commitment to collective human evolution. The transformation deepens through your recognition that you're not just witnessing history's greatest change, you're actively creating it through your consciousness. Your DNA awaits activation through your courage to question limitations, explore capabilities, and claim your birthright as a sovereign conscious being. The evolution continues through your participation in humanity's transition from unconscious slaves to conscious creators of our own destiny.